In music, predictability is a good thing. And in Aspen Glow, the phrases are almost always 4-bar phrases. They're very predictable, and it's comfortable for students to learn the phrasing, and it's easy for the audience to expect a certain phrase to occur. Now, we start off here with a very beautiful chord progression. We have G major, E7, C major, D major. And then we have the same thing again. G major, E minor, minor 7, then C major, D major, and that's our first 2 4-bar phrases. At measure 9, we have more of a plagal progression here, C major to G major, C major to G major, that's our next phrase, and then 13, C major to G major, C major, and then on beat 3 of 15, our harmonic rhythm increases, D major, G major. So generally, what we want to do when we phrase is we want to develop the phrase, we want to grow into our cadential point, and then relax into the resolution. So the phrasing I like to use for Aspen Glow is I like to start the phrase soft, and then I like to grow the phrase for 3 measures, and then decrescendo for the 4th measure of the phrase. In measure 15, however, we kind of have to be careful because with the change in the harmonic rhythm is getting faster in 15, and that accentuates the phrase on its own. So we want to be very careful with beat 3 that we don't play the D major dominant chord too loud, because we don't really need to slam that home. The change in harmonic rhythm is already going to accentuate that and highlight that. So we have to be a little careful there in that measure. And a lot of younger orchestras don't quite understand that nuance, and it breaks up their phrasing a little more than I would like before they relax into the G major chord again, the tonic chord at 16. We do have a few phrase extensions in Aspen Glow, and that's okay. You just need to explain to your students where they are and what to do with them. So for instance here, in measure 25, or let's go back to 17 here. So 17, you have your first 4-bar phrase here, and then at 21, you have a beginning of another phrase, but then there's 5 measures before we get to our new phrase at 26. 26 should look familiar to you because it's similar to the material that we have at the beginning. So what do we do with 25? Well, we have this as a linking measure to the next phrase at 26, and so what I like to do is crescendo into 24 and then 25 come back down. Now we also have a change in dynamics here at 26, and that helps make that transition easier too, and so it works out great. The next time that happens is right here at measure 42. Now this is a bit trickier because we have our 4-bar phrase here, 34 through 38, and then we have 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. We crescendo into the next phrase at 43. So we need to make a musical decision here. Are we going to take our phrase, we're getting louder, 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 and then get louder yet, and then 43, just play this like block of forte sound? Or are we going to continue to shape 43 through 47 in that next phrase? So it kind of depends on what you want to do. And it kind of depends on who you're playing this for. You kind of have to know your audience. If you're playing for people that don't necessarily know this piece and are unfamiliar with it, maybe you're going to a festival that includes band, choirs, and orchestras, and you might have an orchestra judge on the panel, a band director on the panel, a choir director on the panel. They might not be familiar with this piece, and they might expect it to be quite literal in the dynamic interpretation. So if you don't really accentuate that crescendo and play really loud at 43, they might dock you for that. So be careful. But if you're playing this for all string orchestra teachers, they're likely to know this piece, and they're likely to know how it goes because Aspen Glow is a pretty popular piece of music. And what you could do is you could play your 4-bar phrase like you typically would. Okay, get louder, get louder, get louder. 41 gets softer, and then get extra soft at 42, come back down, and then 41 crescendo into 43, but not quite so much, maybe only crescendo up to a mezzo forte, and then you're going to start a new set of phrases here at 43. Now, when Susan Day writes forte for this, she doesn't mean every note's going to be forte. She writes forte for that phrase. So I guess the average of that phrase is going to be forte. It's going to start lower than forte. It's going to get above forte, but it all averages out to forte in the end. We have the same thing in 71 here. Very similar writing, actually. And again, we have to make that same decision at 71. Do we want to crescendo and then have a block of forte from 72 to 76, or do we want to make a 4-bar phrase from 72 to 76 and add some shape to that? That's a decision that you're going to need to make, and you're going to kind of need to know who you're playing for and what they expect. Now, if you're just playing a concert for the parents, I would definitely recommend that you phrase, because they don't have a score in front of them, and they're going to be able to feel the rise and fall of the phrase, and that's going to be much more meaningful and much more rewarding for them. But if you have some judges that are pretty literal about that kind of stuff, you might want to interpret it a different way, maybe play it a little bit more conservatively. Now, when you're playing in an odd meter, the most difficult thing with phrasing is going to be when you have that half note, quarter note rhythms. And in 43, that's what we've got in the second violins, violas, and basses. A lot of times what happens is that the quarter notes are always too loud, and it's really difficult to create a musical phrase when it's just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and you're just getting slapped with beat 3 in every measure. So we're going to need to practice this. And I like to have the orchestra play this on an open D and just practice evening out the half notes with the quarter note and not make the quarter notes so loud. So a little bit heavier bow on the half note and a lighter up bow on the quarter note. Another trick to this is to shorten the half note. That tends to make it easier. The longer bow we use for the half note, the harder it's going to be to equalize those dynamics. And what we're eventually going to want to do, again, is to have them be able to grow through the phrase without exaggerating the quarter note every time. So once I get them to all play as a group and play to where they can maintain an even sound on the half note and quarter note, sometimes I'll have them overcompensate and see if they can play the quarter note soft and the half note loud. And that really helps to drive the point home to where they have not just enough bow control to be able to play Aspen Glow, but they have more bow control than what they need. Then once they're absolutely comfortable with that, you can start getting your orchestra just on an open D to play a 4-bar phrase with dynamics on open D using the half note, quarter note rhythms. So they can, when they start adding the left hand at 43, they have a good base of technique to work with. I really like Aspen Glow because the focus of this piece is on the musical quality, on the phrasing, on the musical expression, not so much on the left hand technique or how fast can this go or how high can this go or how loud can it be. It's just very calm and very beautiful, and it's simple enough so that your students have the opportunity to learn the phrasing, and it's a big part of the piece. If you leave the phrasing out, it's just not the same. So definitely make sure that you don't skip phrasing on Aspen Glow. It really creates a much more meaningful performance.